Hey guys, it's Loma02, still exploring the PreModern format, which, for those of you who haven't seen previous PreModern content, PreModern is a semi-rogue, semi-informal format that consists of cards from the tail end of 1994, really 4th edition, the introduction of 4th edition, all the way through 2003. So an easy way of referencing it is all of the cards have old border frames, unless those old border frames are for some reason not available on MTGO, which they should be because MTGO has been around during that entirety of that time frame. Not the entirety of that time frame, but for the most part, it's been around from that time frame. So what you have in front of you is Suicide Black, which is probably not the politically correct name for this deck anymore. It's probably something like Black Aggro now, but far be it from me to be politically correct at the cost of our own history, which, back in the day, this was a fairly regular professional deck. It was especially good in blue metas, heavy blue metas. Wasn't bad versus the Living Death decks. Where it tends to struggle is generally against direct red decks like Sligh decks, goblins, anything that has direct damage. Because it's playing 4 Phyrexian Negators, which if you're not familiar with Phyrexian Negator, but you've been playing Magic for the last 6 to 10 years, then you're probably familiar with a much newer card that is far better than it is. So it's funny because Magic is a trend. The creatures have gotten worse, the creatures have gotten better, and the spells have gotten worse. So where we have cards like Yawgmoth's Will, or Necropotence, they've consistently made worse versions of those cards, and the creatures have continued to get better. Phyrexian Negator has eventually did turn into Phyrexian Obliterator, which I believe was pushed out in New Phyrexia. That set. And this card right here is pretty similar to it, although obviously it's Phyrexian Obliterator that's redolent of this card. So this is a 5/5 trample for 3 mana, which is a very great rate, but it has a massive drawback. Whenever this card is dealt damage, you have to sacrifice that many permanents. So it is a source of vast card disadvantage. But in a deck that runs 4 Dark Rituals, City of Traders, and Swamp, it's very easy to get this guy out either turn 1 or turn 2, and you only have to turn him sideways a couple of times, then you win the game. You're also running Hatred in this deck, which, if you're not familiar with this card, also a very old card, I believe from, this is Onslaught. Pay X life, target creature gets +X/+0 until end of turn. 5's a lot of mana, but you have Dark Rituals, you have City of Traders. It's pretty easy to get this down on anything early, and if you have a higher life total than they do, you just win the game if your creature connects. You'll note that our creatures either have Trample, i.e. Phyrexian Negator, Evasion, Shadow on Dauthi Slayer, and Shadow on Dauthi Whore, which also cannot be blocked clause by white creatures, which is very important because the only other real color that reliantly has good shadow creatures that would be blocking or generally are played in tournament, not tournament, but competitive formats, is white. So mana base pretty simple. 20 lands. 4 of them are City of Traders, which are generally, kind of a little dicey if you're trying to play a longer game, but this deck is not. As far as the remainder of the creature package, we have 4 Carnophages just because they're fast, and then 4 Sarcomancies, which is essentially a 2/2 creature. Essentially Vampire Lacerator is how you can look at this card, except it never turns the 1 damage off a turn if you lose it. Also have 4 Duresses because these just tend to be good against decks that run a lot of removal. It gets STPs and stuff like that out of there, because the last thing you want to do is go all in on a Negator and have it get STP'd. Sure, you'll gain a bunch of life, but it's not really going to be relevant because you're not going to make the cards up. This deck cannot really accrue card advantage unless it starts using the sideboard. You also have 4 Unmasks to also support the Duress plan. Obviously, this is card disadvantage, but it is very powerful, and it's free. Correction, it costs no mana. It's not free. Nothing's free. Snuff Out, also free, quote-unquote. As long as you have swamps in play, you can destroy non-black creatures, but you're taking 4 life points of damage. Spinning Darkness, also essentially free. It does 3 to a target creature, non-black creature, and you gain 3 life, but you have to exile the top 3 black cards of your graveyard. You're never paying 6 mana to do this. Even though that's the casting cost, you won't use it for that. As far as sideboard goes, we have Planar Void, 2 Coffin Purges against the Living Death decks. Generally speaking, you're going to want to be faster than having to need these, but if you need them, they're good to have. So how we gain card advantage: Masticore and Curse Scroll. Masticore demolishes weenie decks. He's very hard to kill because he regenerates. Unless you're playing against Swords to Plowshares, he'll probably stick around. And he also just demolishes Weenie, like I was saying. I mean, you pay 2 and you can kill most Weenie creatures. Also have 3 Cursed Scroll, which are also card advantage. Dystopia, which is great against green-white decks, and also accrues you just a large amounts of life advantage at the cost of life. Another Spinning Darkness, which is just good versus aggressive decks, helps keep you alive. Perish, card advantage against like Senior Stompy, which is an old name for the mono green decks in the format that are, well, not mono green decks, the mono green aggressive decks, like the decks that are so aggressive they're playing Wild Dogs. If you're not familiar with Wild Dogs, then maybe you're not familiar with Gazmon Ogre. Basically, they're a 2-power attacker that costs 1 green mana, but they go Goblin Cadets on you and jump over to your opponent's side if your opponent has more life during your upkeep. So you don't really want to play them unless you're going to be doing the damage. So what I mean when I say Senior Stompy is decks that run cards that are that aggressive. I also have 2 Contagions. I'm trying these out provisionally. Contagion is a very strong card against a lot of like the Weenie style decks, and I think also against like Goblins, White Weenie, even like to some extent the mono green decks. It can generally string things down to the right size to keep you alive, and it's also not bad in the mirror because it tends to be a surprise and it can blow out a Hatred turn very well. If your opponent goes for Hatred because they think they have positional advantage, you can just cast Contagion. Yes, you're exiling cards, so I'm sorry, I didn't explain the card. This is kind of like the Black Force of Will, if you will. Obviously far worse, but still a powerful card. So it has a 5 mana casting cost, but you can spend a life, exile a black card, and distribute 2 weakness counters, as I like to call them, because it gives a 2 -2, -1 counters. I don't think there's any other card I've seen that has -2, -1 counters, excepting this one, but it's pretty sweet. I believe this was... God, I'm trying to remember now. It wasn't Mass Block. I forget when Contagion came out, but it's so old that they didn't even have it in one of the sets. They had to put it in an MED set, a Master set, on Magic Online. So this is Suicide Black. I'm going to go ahead and pause it here, guys. Oh, a couple other cards I forgot to talk about. This card, this is like, I don't know if it's one of my favorite cards. I have a affinity for triple black casting cost cards. Like Necropotence is probably my favorite card ever. And it's also just tends to be a very busted card as well. I just like 3 black cards. They're just very cool to me. But Kaervek Spite. This card is hilarious. Like, talk about card disadvantage. Its additional cost to cast a spell, you have to sacrifice everything. You basically have to go 1 with nothing, but also destroy your board. So you sacrifice all permanents you control and discard your hand, and a target player can lose 5 life. So it's basically like a hyper-efficient Lava Axe. So you're only casting this to finish, obviously, but the card itself cracks me up, and I love the fact that you get to play this card in here because I just think it's hilarious. But anyways, this is the deck. It is extremely aggressive, extremely fast, can't beat red, but generally against most other things, as long as you have a good keep and you draw decently well, you'll probably run them over. And with your fastest draws, you can run most things over. Excepting mono red. Against mono red, you probably just lose almost every time because you really are going to have a tough time playing control. Even if you bring in Master Cores and Cursed Scrolls, you're probably not going to keep pace with them. Anyways, go to a quick pause, guys. See if I can find a game and show you what this deck gets up to. Alright. Alright, guys, back. What do we think of this hand? This hand is... This hand is... If like one of these Season Traders was a swamp, I would definitely go for this. This is a mulligan. We do have the play here. Alright, this has got to be a keep. We're going to go turn 1 Carnophage or Sarcomancy. Turn 1 Carnophage. But one other swamp. No. Bottom that. Alright, Carnophage, go. They're probably wondering what the hell I'm doing. I'm probably going to get blown out here. That's fine, though. And I think we go turn 2 Dauthi Slayer, unless we draw a Ritual. If we draw a Ritual, I'll probably just dump my hand. Maybe not. Maybe not, because then if I draw Hatred the turn after, I can just win. Well, they didn't cast turn 1 Carnophage, so we're ahead, I think. Paralife for Phage. Alright, we bottomed a swamp, drew a swamp. Play a land main 1 like a boss. Midwest rules, right? Alright. Dauthi a Slayer. Get in there. Hope we don't get damnationed here. So, yeah, we did draw the Ritual. So we'll lead on Swamp next turn. Another 2-drop creature be a great draw next turn. Or even like Hatred, but I don't really want to draw Hatred. I want to draw Hatred not next turn, but the turn after. because then that should close out the game. And we go surprise, City of Traders, Hatred, win the game. I mean, they're playing black-white, so like I don't even know if they're not tapped out. I don't want to cast Hatred. All right, Suture Priest. Well, that card races. Ooh. Negator. Get in there, all of you. So they're going to gain... I'm going to lose 2 life here, down to 16. They're losing 4. Can actually sacrifice the Sarcomancy with the Phyrexian Negator, which is pretty sick. And I have so many lands right now, I could sack the City of Traders before I play a land second main, if they block with a weenie creature. And if they just path this thing, that'd be great, because I would just gain a bunch of life. Yep, always yield to this. Suture Priest. So we're obviously not playing on the pre-modern deck. What are you going to do? Alright, go ahead, man. Wouldn't be surprised if the Phyrexian Negator gets killed. Now, if they have a first striker, the Negator becomes a lot worse, obviously. Then I'll probably... If they have a first striker, I'll probably just start tapping the Carnophage and attacking it with the Douthie and stop playing creatures. At this point, I'm kind of just looking for a Hatred. Negator is at least just size huge. What would be the worst thing to see here? Like, because they're obviously not playing pre-modern. If they just played like a Mirror Crusader, I'm probably just like, alright, I'm done. Like, I'm going to the house. This deck is very all-in. It's not per se great against weenie strategies. And we didn't really have the nut draw here. Alright, doing nothing. Is there a flash card I need to be worried about? I'm going to take the damage, yeah. Alright, well, if they're just going to block with their... I mean, they probably have something here. I'm a sucker, though. I'm going for it. If you have a trick or something like that, or a way to kill my dude, my Negator specifically, they're not blocking? Like, alright, they have something. Safe passage. Alright. I'll lose 1 life down to 14 here. So they're on the safe passage gain life deck. Alright. Alrighty. They have Wrath of God. Maybe I should have played this other Dauthi Slayer out. Yeah, that's probably bad. That wasn't probably bad, that was bad, but I should have saved it in hand. Because, like, if they go any land, Wrath of God, like, I'm probably done. I mean, not definitively, but they're still at 14. I really need to get that damage in, but if they're playing cards like Safe Passage, which is an odd one, 3-mana fogs are kind of bizarre. Although this is better than a fog, I guess, because it allows your creatures to do damage to my creatures, if you will, which is pretty strong. I think generally speaking, you're better just to run, let's see if I can remember the name of the card. Gosh, I can't. It's a 1-mana card. Alright, up to 15. Do they have another creature card? They do. Skull Snatcher, alright. I think I still attack into this. It's just all my lands, right? And that passes through. Yeah, I'm down. I mean, I have a ton of lands in hand. If they want to trip block my Phyrexian Negator, I'm down. Don't really care about my mana base. I have 2 swamps in hand. Other than drawing Hatred, which at this point I don't think Hatred is necessary. They obviously have more life. They're not going to have more life after this attack step, but they don't block at all. How much do they take? They're at 17. They take a metric shit ton of damage, so that's 5 plus 6, 11, 13 down to 4. And they can swing back for 4 themselves, which puts me at a virtual 8 after I take 1 damage off the Carnophage on the following turn. Even if they trip block the Negator, I still get in 3 damage. The Negator doesn't die. I sack 4 perms, which are going to be all lands. Oh, I'm sorry, all lands and Sarcomancy. Because Sarcomancy is a bizarre card. It's very weird templating. I explained it as a creature in my deck tech. Alright, cool. You're taking? I'm a braver man than I. Alright. Go on ahead. But I have 4 unblockable next turn according to his creatures. He's probably going to gain some life this turn. Or he could just honorable a passage again. Alright. Like a Geist Honored Monk or something like that. What the hell is going on here? Alright, what does this thing do? Rat creatures have fear. Alright, that does nothing. I don't really care if you attack me. I don't think you have the ability to attack me here successfully. So up to 6. I attack with everything. They can trip block the Phyrexian Negator and block out all of its damage. And then they're still dead. They can single block the Negator. I think they're dead. I'm trying to think if there's a way to block. Like, the Morrow... What is this? Morrow Gnar plus the Skull Snatcher. Good game, man. Yeah, I was going to say, I think they're done. Like, thank me for what? Well, go to sideboarding. Oh, it's a... Oh, fucking freeform. Alright, well, I joined someone else's game, and they, I guess, don't want to play out the rest of the game. So, this is what you get. I kind of wanted to showcase more of this deck. I really wish folks would actually play what is advertised. But what can you do? So anyways, guys, this is PreModern, Suicide Black, Suicide King. Very, very cool deck. It didn't really get to showcase it in the context that it was showcased back in the day. But this is a very meta-specific deck. Like, you play this deck in a meta that it's going to be good in. Like, and basically that's a meta that red decks are not going to be good in. So think like value mid-range, because this can generally tend to outpace value mid-range. Think blue decks like High Tide. Like, High Tide probably doesn't beat a turn 1 Phyrexian Negator. High Tide's quick, but it's not 5 on turn 2, turn 3, turn 4 quick. And, ostensibly this deck can combo on as fast as turn 2. Really all it needs is to get a 2/2 creature down and cast a Hatred on turn 2, which is very doable with 4 Dark Rituals in the City of Traders. And, yeah. So, definitely not impossible to kill on turn 2. Not the most likely draw, but it is the nut draw for the deck. And if your opponent taps out on their turn 2, if you're turn 2 on the play and you have that draw, they probably can't beat you unless they're representing white mana or red mana, and they haven't tapped it for something else. So, very powerful deck. A little bit narrow. Plays out more like a combo deck generally as opposed to an aggro deck, at least in my opinion. But mostly because you have Hatred in the deck, and Hatred kind of does add a combo-esque feel to the deck because you're committing alternate resources as opposed to mana, even though you are committing that as well, to end the game instantaneously. So, very cool deck, very interesting. I'm going to put this one up, and hopefully at some point in time I'll get to play some games against some other pre-modern players. The format is pretty sweet. I've met a couple players online, and yeah, I've actually built probably like 7 or 8 decks now. I just started this week, and I find the format to be very fun. It's kind of like playing the flashback. To some extent, the flashback Pro Tour decks. They sometimes have like the throwback drafts. I want to say not throwback drafts, throwback. The throwback decks, I forget what they call it, the throwback queues, I forget. But MTGO's had a couple of them at this point where they have decks like Drago, like Sligh, like, Sped Red. All kinds of different like old decks that were, tournament staples or won like Worlds and stuff like that. This deck's kind of redolent of that, but it is buffered up a little bit with some more powerful cards that were out of its time frame. So Suicide Black and like Necro were kind of the two black decks. Necro was similar in the context that it used small weenie creatures, but it actually was more. It had more control elements to it because Necro had Disc, Necro had Drain Life, it had Hymn to Turek. So it had a few more things going for it in regards to control. This deck has very little ability to control anything in the game outside of Duress, Unmask, and then Spinning Darkness. You're just attacking. Like, you just need to kill them as fast as you possibly can. The sideboard obviously gives it a little more, but when this deck has to play control, it doesn't tend to be in its element, and I think you tend to, even if you play optimally, lose those style of games unless you get very good draws that allow you to kind of play as more of a control deck. Anyways, guys, I'm going to go ahead and cut it there. Hope you enjoyed this short video session with PreModern Suicide Black here. Very cool deck, and although it's a little focused, a little narrow, I think it is a pretty cool historical reminder of some of the decks from the past, albeit a little buffered up at this point to be a little bit stronger. All right, guys, enjoy and take care now.